Black lipstick, fishnets, corsets, mascara. Or maybe this is called an eyeshadow, I don't know. When a person wearing this aesthetic comes into view, your attention is immediately caught, your head turns. And in the internet, the comment sections or general discussion around it are usually very thirsty, or funnily cringe, or sometimes even borderline concerning. I have to admit, before goth girls started becoming the meta, I actually started liking them in some way, and I wasn't really into the post-punk industrial music or screamo or heavy metal or anything. I wasn't really into their literature either. I just liked that aura, that confidence, that aesthetic, this mysterious allure, and have several media to blame for that. Raven and Blackfire from Teen Titans, Misa Amane from Death Note, the Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo, fucking Morgan Ainsland. Suffice to say, my exposure to this interpretation of goth girls played a huge part in developing my tastes in women. In terms of personality and aesthetic, I just developed a gravitation towards these kind of characters and these designs. And I imagine a lot of you feel the same way. I'm not going to claim to be an expert of goths or claim that I grew up or learned in an environment with gothic influences, but we first have to dive a little bit into their history. Black makeup and pale skin, loud outfits. This came from a very specific musical subculture, goth music. Post-punk and rock and metal and industrial. The Sisters of Mercy, Bauhaus, and even Sex Pistols. The Goths are inspired by music characterized by lamentations of the status quo and open expression about their dark emotions, a form of rebellion against society, contrasting mainstream music and typical pop rock. Certain groups of people find solace and relatability to this kind of music. Those struggle with identity, those lost in direction, the bullied, abandoned, addicted, those who are interested with things society considers distasteful. By its very roots, this music and culture carries a certain political commentary, and when like-minded people discover a community within places, they just gravitate towards them. Those with peculiarities and quirks that are not societally accepted. Those who are rejected, disenfranchised, abandoned, they find communion with the goth subculture. And as these raw emotions boil to the surface, goths broadcast their discontent and their message to the world in the loudest yet undisruptive way they possibly can. Their appearance. Angular, sharp, heavy, and black and white. Loud outfits who demand your attention. Straps, leather, bare skin. English fashion demands conservatism and restraint, so goth girls show skin, eroticizes themselves, a purposeful display of sex appeal and other things that English culture did not like. This is the baggage that comes with the original goth subculture. But just like any other subculture, when you open your gates to the world, time and population starts to, let's say, dilute parts of your subculture, sometimes in a way that you may not like. As time passed on, different parts and different cultures started picking visually striking aspects of the goth culture. Their dark aesthetic was a visual fit for, say, the supernatural, of Christian iconology towards pop culture. Even Japan incorporated Lolita elements to make their own variation of goths. Goth evolved into not just finding fascination with the horror and the macabre, but actually wanting to fuck it as well. From self-expression, it evolved into exploration and empowerment of that taboo. Vampire novels, dark academia, dark romance. It now included the sweet temptations of sinful desires, the slow start of the fetishization and acceptance of dark and horror. In general, gothic subculture was no longer a subculture, it was an entire thing now. Now, goths evolved and branched out into multiple subcultures of its own. Cybergoth, romantic, commercial, pop goth. But it still retained its core messaging even beyond the music. New bands took on the mantle, and new styles of music evolved with the times. Internet goth. Okay, so this is where things take a bit of a turn. A lot of things has happened ever since the media started depicting goth culture. It resulted into the aesthetic becoming one of the more recognizable types in the world, and when the internet started bringing attention to it, it was amazing. It started humbly though, still deeply rooted in the original gothic subculture. Films such as The Corpse Bride and The OG Addams Family offered us an odd but favorable glimpse into the gothic aesthetic. With women wanting to try out these cool fits, we created new and started categorizing goths. Soft goths, pastel goths, witchy goths. In the internet, the meta changed. Sad poems and the romanticization of depression and angst. We even got overt masterpieces like My Immortal. Not the Evanescence song, the Harry Potter fanfiction. While yes, the whole romanticizing, so slitting your wrists thing was cringe and silly, the aesthetic of the scene became something of a cultural attraction to casual internet and media users who may have seen this rarely or for the very first time. It didn't help that, again, the first things we may have seen from goths were visually striking and sexy representations, and perhaps that was intentional. Stalking from Panty and Stocking, Koromi Tokisaki from Data Live, Raven from Teen Titans, Chego from Kim Possible. These were some of the first characters that millennials and Gen Zs saw from goths or goth-presenting characters, and they were some of the most attractive and memorable characters we've ever seen. Traditional OG goths still exist though, those who still identify with the music and political culture. But now, with the internet, the focus of goth culture started becoming less and less about its political baggage and music and more to do with the fashion statement and the aesthetic. People started to see goths as yes, still rebellious and anti-society, but in a way that's like hot and attractive. You know, the bad kinky girl who dominates you in bed instead of being dominated. The bad girl who would steal candy from the baby, licks it and sticks it in your mouth. Hot. Cool girl, dark girl. The freak became the freaky, the counterculture to traditional females. Instead of dumb, predictable, and submissive, they were intelligent, chaotic, and mysterious. Instead of bright colors, dresses, and heels, they wore chokers, fishnets, and black lipstick. They became popular in an era where the internet glorified and romanticized depression, an era where different and quirky made you stand out. When autistic, edgy women became the most in-demand kind of women in the internet. But it has to be like the right kind of autistic, you know, the one that doesn't actually get anyone in trouble. Suddenly, a lot of men wanted to see more of this. A lot of women started relating with their problems, and a lot of companies saw the rising trend. The traits that made goth secluded and rejected now became the recipe of success. It naturally follows that visual indicators that signal these traits were going to be adopted. In Super Mario Bros., there was an item called Super Crown that transformed Toadette into Peachette, a clone of Princess Peach. This item was something only Toadette could use, but the implications that the Super Crown can turn this mushroom creature into an attractive, idealized version of themselves in the form of a princess have sparked imagination. What happens then when Bowser, in his powerful, emotionally unstable, spiky, and aggressive glory, puts on the Super Crown? Well, he turns into this, a dark, spiky, goth-looking ass baddie, a perfect contrast to the girly, colorful presence of Princess Peach. And the internet erupted over this. So much fan art, so much memes, a cultural explosion in the Super Mario community and beyond. It spoke to the contrarian appeal of the goth-presenting woman. More recently, this is Shiori Novella of Hololive English, a VTuber, a textbook, perfect gothic masterpiece of a visual design, the right amount of spice, the perfect amount of eroticness. And somehow in our little gooner brain, a lot of people expected, imagined, wanted her to be this deep-voiced, hot, dominant woman who was going to peg, whip, and spit in your mouth. Hot. But when she came out, she was actually this sweet dork who likes mentally disturbed, edgy men and has unconventional hobbies, is well-read in various classic and modern literature, and whose music taste I think constitutes her as a goth, actually. And this disappointed people. People who had a fetishized perception towards goth girls did not really like a goth girl. Of course, a lot of people still like Chiori, but there was a vocal group that did not, and I blame this photo in the headcanons in 4chan, but I think I know why this is. The goth aesthetic in mainstream media became a costume, especially for opportunistic e-girls and the horny men that want to be pegged. The political messaging and rebellious nature had all of its heavy baggage stripped away and reduced into something that was more, let's say, conventionally safe. You know, toned down a little bit so people don't get uncomfortable. A little bit of it to entice them, but not enough to make you think that it's a bad kind of weird. The music aspect was kind of gone. The rough edges smoothed over and the loud, emotionally rich self-expression, once proud of its beautiful ugliness, now turned into attention-seeking behavior, more appealing to the mainstream, the exact kind of thing that the original gothic subculture stood against. Goth as a culture and aesthetic has always had erotic elements to it, let's not kid ourselves. Showing some skin and adding fetish wear was an intentional part of the fashion statement, but without the point of that statement, without a reason why you were dressing like this, something changed. Eccentricity in all its excitement and unpredictability without the emotional baggage. Beautiful somberness without the uncomfortable isolation. danger without the consequences. Yes, the goth aesthetic became the base level of spice in the internet, and some people didn't like that. In fact, this problem is so rampant that there is a decades-long civil war about this exact kind of problem in the goth scene. Traditional OG goths versus the new pastel or TikTok goths. They've been kind of each other's throats for years. Traditional goths would argue that these new age bitches are just tourists who don't actually listen to the music or participate in the culture or even have a political opinion, that they even get the literature or naming conventions wrong. It had sexual undertones and revealing aspects, but you didn't look like a whore. You're not a real goth because you don't even believe or know the things that the subculture was supposed to stand for. You just like the attention and the money from the fetishization of it, the pick-me behavior. Meanwhile, new age goths and the e-girls and the pastels and whatever, they believe this is just the natural evolution of goth culture. It was going to be experimental. Alt fashion was always going to be a thing. It was going to branch out and mutate to anything and everything that whispers out of the ordinary. Not just in its music and singular political messaging, it is supposed to be empowerment. Though instead of empowerment, trad goths saw this as commodification. Their culture literally became everyone's costume. I'm not going to dive too deeply. I just wanted you to know that it exists, and it will probably keep existing for decades to come. Old VTuber fans might even find it relatable to an extent. I look at this subject as a person that's neither trad goth or new age goth, but as a consumer of it. Someone who is aware of its origins and its Puritan definition to its current evolution, and someone who is undeniably enticed by its nature. But the thing is, I like this, but I also like this. Is it just a sexual appeal? Or the weirdness that comes with a goth girl's personality? Is it just the music? Or is it something else? Goth has become something else in the internet. Any female character that wears primarily black colors made of leather, lace straps, and that may have behavioral quirks or someone considered abnormal that may defy societal expectations and has some danger to them is what many people would call goth coded. Even if you know that these people wouldn't necessarily listen to screamo or industrial music, or if they don't wear black makeup and piercings. And if I may add more fictional character examples who has gothic aesthetics, may I present to you people like Ashley from Andy and Lele, Ubel from Freyren, and Your Forger from Spy Family. Do you see any resemblance? They are all fucking hot! And you might think that all these three characters wouldn't necessarily be goths, except Ashley. She is probably the most overt goth character in this example set. Ubel from Freyren, yes, black goth-esque outfit and choker, but doesn't really feel like it, I suppose. Except in Freyren, she's quite literally an anomaly in her own world. Her power comes from her ability to visualize and understand abstract concepts of magic rather than just straight up learning the magic word. She has a sort of anti-magic, where as long as she is able to think she can do something or visualize she can do something, then she can do anything. Legit, the power to upend the world of magic in Freyren as we know it. Is this not a sort of parallel to the goth subculture's themes? She's also dangerous, has her behavioral quirks, and emits a psychopathic aura. But Ubel is actually quite reasonable than you think. She is a chaotic neutral character, neither evil nor good. She is a girl that knows what she wants and is, more importantly, she's actually kind of a sweetheart, a little bit, you know? In fact, her ability to copy the magic of others, as long as she empathizes and feels with them, is very goth when you think about it. Meanwhile, Yor is chaotic good. She also has her behavioral quirks, and she does things that she believes is right and also emits this psychopathic aura. She does not conform to a woman's role in their society, not because she chose to do it or because she was born this way, she just doesn't know how. Despite being conventionally attractive, she is a reject. In fact, her insecurity about her abnormality is her greatest and most defining character flaw. Throughout the show, Yor actively learns to do, quote, normal things because she has to do them, but at the same time learns to accept that there are abnormal things that she likes and wants to do. Those don't have to be necessarily mutually exclusive. She grows confident with the things she does and the things she has to do and how she displays herself. Is this not part of the goth subculture's commentary? I think Yor can be considered goth, or at least goth-coded, just not in the sense that we all think of. She's probably not gonna listen to My Chemical Romance or wear makeup the way the aesthetic demands, and I know a lot of you might disagree with me, but I just think she's a goth. A person who knows they are a reject, yet broadcasts their flaws to the world. A person who knows not their place but still chooses to live and defy expectations. A person who knows nobody might care and that it hurts but still chooses to express and to emote. What do we call that person? I think the unifying factor about all these three is the same reason why goths were, are, and will be attractive even in the far future. Confidence. Not the staged, broadcasted Hollywood fierce confidence, not forced, shaky, half-assed confidence, real, intelligent confidence. In a world of color, uniformity, conformity, goths choose to paint it all black and white and walk their own path. Be attractive not for others, but for themselves. In a world of prejudice and pushback, the goths are paradoxically free. Feminine but not a doormat, powerful but not suffocating. A girl that knows exactly what she is and chooses to live with it. A person who, despite their flaws and insecurities, chooses to stand out. Caring not if people think she is cringe or disgusting for standing out and wearing these. Women wrapped in darkness and trauma and mystery yet find power in it. Because to some extent, human beings respect that behavior. A man has always had rigid societal roles and expectations, so if they see a woman who is this mixture of confidence, vulnerability, mystery, emotionality, your average Joe cannot help but be drawn to it. Women was always taught to conceal and to smile and to submit and to conform. So if they see another who chooses to expose who they are and yet defy expectations and norms, they cannot help but wish to have that courage or relate to them. Goths are real in both the good and the bad, and I think that's why we like them so much. It's a level of real that we all try to rise to. And besides, now we live in a world of economic uncertainty. We have been disillusioned of society, struggling with our own identities. It makes sense why the goth has made a bigger comeback. What goths represent is a timeless concept. They have gone a long way from being a singular, post-punk, anti-establishment music-based subculture. Now, it has become the marker of self-truth. To be who you are despite what everyone says. It's a universal appeal, so it's no wonder why we all became obsessed with them. Hi, thanks for watching my video. If you want to see more content and to get your name featured in the boards over here, consider joining the second tier of my membership, My Scholars. Not only do you get videos earlier and uncensored, they get exclusive access to videos reserved only for members, as well as streams for spicier dramas and topics. My Google Docy series is a series where I condense VTuber Google Docs that would normally take an hour or two to finish into digestible 10 to 15 minute videos so you don't have to. 2 episodes a month. For the Gooners, I will also happen to recommend VTuber related materials for your particular needs. Either way, liking and subscribing helps too. I will continue to brainstorm more exclusive content that will make it worth your while to give me money. Haha. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.